Welcome to the Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm here with Emily Bell McCormick, who is the founder at the Policy Project, and Kristin Andrus, who is a community champion of that project. How are you?
Doing so well. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you both for joining. A little early commute. I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you guys, I'll ask some of these directly to each one of you, but you can jump in wherever you see fit. Let's start with you, Emily. Utah Period Project and the Policy Project. Let's talk about those. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so the idea is that policy has this like grand effect on society, and sometimes it's something we overlook because it's not flashy, right? You get kind of wonky in that world. But several years ago, like 4 years ago, I went to lunch with a friend who was working with an organization called Days for Girls. And that's basically a worldwide organization, and they sew menstrual products for girls in very low income countries. So she was living in South Africa at the time, and she was in the States visiting. We went to lunch and we were chatting about this issue and what like period poverty, which is just like a lack of access to period products, which means you cannot care for this occurrence that happens 3 to 5 days a month for 40 years of your life, right? We're talking about period poverty in these low income countries and what that's like for girls. And what it looks like is really, really desperate and really severe. So it's like girls go to class, they can't take care of their period, they bleed on a seat, then they're punished, right? Their teachers hit them or ask them to not come back to class, or, you know, kind of these extreme cases. So we're chatting through what that looks like and how policy around menstruation has been overlooked entirely in these low income countries. And as we're chatting, we both have this like sit still moment where we start wondering like what's going on in the United States. You know, is the US up to date on this? I've never even thought about it because life is just, you know, normal. I actually am in the fortunate position of not having struggled to afford period products, so it hasn't been an issue for me. But we start taking a look at like what's happening in the United States and realize that there are these massive holes in policy. So we have these things that are considered medically necessary, and as like the IRS, you know, they with taxation, they go through every single pool and decide how much things should be, you know, what tax should incur on each item. Well, medically necessary items, you can purchase them with like a health savings account and some of these other like government programs. Well, the one big bucket that is empty is that menstrual products are not included in that. But there are other things that are included that are gendered, like men's products like Rogaine or Viagra, right? Also things like Band-Aid, sunscreen, like those are included, but menstrual products are not. And it's just this like, we realize in this moment that there's been this massive oversight, probably mostly because women weren't at the table when these decisions were being made, right? Like we didn't have a lot of women in Congress, we didn't have them in state legislatures back when. And so it's overlooked there. And then we start looking at what's going on in our state, Utah, our home state. And same thing, like the legislature here, we just have this hole for menstrual products where men's products are don't incur sales tax, but women's products do. So we started to work on those pieces of policy at like a federal level and also at a local state level. We were able to get rid of the tampon tax in 2020. It was part of a larger tax reform, so that got overturned, and it's back on. But we looked about a year ago at like what could we do that would have the biggest impact, and we started seeing that girls in school, that is like a population that really can't afford period products on their own. They're dependent on their parents for that. And if you have parents that can't care for you, they're not getting them. So we started working on a bill to put period products in public and charter schools throughout the state of Utah.
Okay. So like any kind of good kind of startup founding story, or at lunch and you had a what the heck?
Yeah,
moment.
exactly.
And then a ton of research, right? I would assume.
Oh boy, years. Yeah.
Got to build a website.
Uh-huh.
Got to come up with a good, clean communication strategy.
Yeah.
For, you know, just everything, right? Just you're talking to your friends, you're talking to your legislators, everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're right. Like, just like any startup, your messaging, it was absolutely key to this, you know, especially because we dance between, we're a 501c3, but we do have like a legislative interest. And so your messaging has to be kind of spot on with this, right? Because there's a reason this stuff hasn't been done in the past. And part of it is it's embarrassing to talk about periods. There's a lot of stigma around it. So how are we talking to, a legislature that's still mostly male, we're 75% male in the state, and one that hasn't wanted to deal with this issue before, while also like talking to the general public and trying to incorporate businesses, which Kristin's going to talk about, and getting them on board. How do we talk to them in a way that doesn't make other people it makes them feel just uncomfortable enough, like not too uncomfortable, but just enough that they feel like they need to do something.
Yeah. And so what are some of the things you've done over the years to craft that messaging, and what have you found works really well and what have you found doesn't work well?
Yeah. There's a lot there. I mean, I think one thing is we started on this before the political landscape got so divisive. I feel like we were a little bit before that. So we didn't see it coming. But luckily, although it's policy, we try to be apolitical, because policy can be in government, but it's definitely in business. I mean, you deal with policy, all of the companies at Silicon Slopes deal with policy, like it's something bigger than that. So really we messaged around, we decided like at the core of us, the thing that we were trying to take on is removing barriers to opportunity, right? So that's our goal, right? And almost everybody can get on board with the idea of like, listen, we exist to remove barriers to opportunity because we want great opportunities for all people. And if people have access to opportunity, then when I'm a company looking to hire someone, if we have people who have endless access to opportunity, your hiring pool is so much bigger, right? So just from every angle, we tried to craft that message around removing barriers to opportunity, and also saying that, these issues are not, some issues are not right or left. They're just human, right? Like 50% of the population experiences menstruation. So this is not like a political party does not get to claim this. This is solely human.
Yeah. And, for folks that have spent a lot of time in the developing world, or sometimes even not really the developing world, it's sometimes pretty easy to see like what's going on is impacting that person's life, but then it could impact a lot of other people's lives, right?
Yeah.
You miss a couple of days of school. This is the impact. You're always late to school, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And so you guys have kind of zeroed in on the impact of bad policy and things that don't work. And is that kind of the starting point of like, here's alternatives that would work?
Yeah, absolutely. And you coined that just perfectly, which is we always want to be presenting a solution. I mean, that's the way that we think about it, is what solution can we offer? Because sometimes we go to our business leaders or our community leaders with like, here's this massive problem. In this case, the massive problem is that 7 out of 10 girls have missed school or know someone who's missed school because of a lack of access to period products. So that's so many more than we would think, right? 70% of the population. We also know that 1 in 4 teens can't afford period products at all. So every month when they're getting their period and they're in high school or junior high, they're panicking, right? We also know that half of women in poverty have to choose between a meal and a period product. And then additionally, this obviously expands into the workforce. 86% of women have been caught somewhere without a period product. And interestingly, when we talk about messaging, one of the things we've realized is that a lot of men, because they don't experience menstruation, did not understand, and this isn't everyone, but we were surprised that there was a misunderstanding that menstruation is more like a bloody nose, like it's spontaneous. When it happens, it's immediate. You have to care for it right then. It's not like number 1 or number 2, where if I'm doing this interview and I really need to go pee, I'm just going to hold it, right? I'm just going to say, I'm going to hold this for a second. For these girls in school or these women at work, they can't hold this. It like has to be dealt with then. So if you don't have a period product, you're in trouble. So yes, the idea was we want to give policy proposals and solutions for this. And so that's where we've come up with kind of this. We have Ep.118, which is period products in schools. That's a bill to put those period products in schools. And then we also have an ask of the business community.
Yeah. And Kristin, what's your involvement in this project? How long have you been involved, and what do you kind of do as the community champion?
Yeah. And community champion, I'd say, is just a general sense of what I'm doing in the community. I have been friends and neighbors with Emily for a long time, and I knew that she was working on the period tax and the tampon tax and really important work, but kind of wasn't paying a ton of attention. And I ended up being in a Murray Middle School talking, I guess it was last Thanksgiving, so about a year and a half ago, talking to a social worker there who kind of under her breath said, this is great. Good drives are great and jackets are great for our kids, but what we really need are pads and tampons for our girls. And so I said, give me the holidays, because we're already doing a lot of giving back. And in February, I'm going to go online and I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to try to do a big fundraiser. And so I reached out to Emily and I said, Kate, is this a problem? Tell me what's going on locally. And she said, yes, this is a thing. And so she was really helpful in kind of getting me started in this. Went to 100,000 online followers and raised $60,000 in a couple of weeks, $5 at a time. And I think the reason we were so successful in that was that it was kind of that gut punch to every single girl like Emily, like myself, who had never thought about food insecurity equals period product insecurity. And we know that we have too many kids that are hungry in our schools and in their homes, but we'd never equate that to the girls in the free lunch line also do not have the product they need. And so they're not showing up to school. They're not showing up to work and the places at sports, right, where they need to be. So I joke because we had $60,000 worth of product in my garage through Costco and Walmart. And my girlfriends and I traversed the state, dropping off big, truckloads of pads and tampons to these schools. And so I was fortunate to be able to go to 50 schools and realize this is a local problem. This is a problem I live in Holiday, Utah. It's a problem in my local middle school, in my local elementary school, and in my high school. And the stories and the tears and the janitors that would just say, for 26 years, I've been cleaning blood off of seats. And elementary school students who have said, I don't tell my dad because we don't even have food at home. How would I let him know that I need a pad? I could tell you 100 stories, and there are 100 happening today. And they're happening in your local middle school. They're happening all around us. As I've walked into a Clearfield high school, 3 girls that day had bled through their pants and came in looking for help. It's a problem, and it's a monthly problem for all of our girls. And we talk a lot about girls in poverty who truly do not have money or access. But it's also just a female human issue, as Emily talked about. So I ended up having a few high-end lunches. We've raised over $350,000 for the food bank, because we are trying to take care, Emily and I with the Period Project are trying to take care of girls in school. And we feel that is so important. As we've gone to principals and social workers and parents and girls, we've realized that taking care of their needs in school and keeping these girls in school is of utmost importance. And then we also realized the food bank, when I reached out to them, and this is the Utah Food Bank, who is everywhere in every crevice of need, right, in our state. And they said, Kristin, we've never asked. They were just like Emily and I. So all of us are coming into this, we now know better and we have to do better. Mm-hmm. So now I'm trying to, just on the side, as we're working on this bill, make sure that our women and girls across the state and over 200 pantries have product that they need. And so many, actually, Silicon Slopes companies have been really, really generous in that. But that's where I stepped in, was kind of through the food bank. And then Emily and I came together. She said, I need you up on Capitol Hill. And I said, I need you at these lunches as I'm trying to educate and talk to the women in our state and have them, lean in and help us. And the overwhelming support and love and stories. I think of Karen Keller, who we all know, Scott and Karen Keller. She said 26 years ago, I was a head of the PTA at a Title I school. And she said, Kristin, I would go on home visits and girls were home because they were on their period. And Emily and I looked at each other at this lunch and we said, we have got to do something that is long lasting. If this has been going on for forever, right? The time is now, and we're going to step in and do something. So it's been a thrill to be a part of, being up on the Hill. We have a private partnership in this, which is the Miller family and our family, who are going to be donating the dispensers. And I will say, having that private partnership with the legislature has been huge. We've just started this groundswell of people talking about it. We have billboards, just like you guys have a lot of billboards up and down our freeways. We've been able to do that through some of our committee. But we have everybody talking about this. Everyone is talking about period poverty. We're flipping it on its head. We're throwing parties. We're on the news. We're everywhere. And I've had a couple of people reach out and say, Kristin, like, periods are on the news all the time. Like, people are talking about periods on social media like it's no thing. Like, look what you and your team at the Period Project and Policy Project have done. It's been incredible. We've even had Gail Miller say, what you guys have done for periods, we need to do for homelessness. Like, we just need to flip the narrative. And our group has been so key at doing that. And it's been really exciting to be a part of. And we've just begun.
Yeah. Very cool. Kind of a good timing of friendships and connections and overlap of networks and kind of goals and agendas. I think a lot of folks listening to this might be like, this is insane that this problem still exists.
Oh, yeah, everyone.
You probably hear the gamut of, really?
Oh, yeah.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
And then, the backstories, right? Probably never ending, and everyone's got plenty of those. And so pretty good success in a relatively short amount of time. Obviously, a lot of work's gone into it.
Yeah.
But it feels like you've got some momentum.
Yeah.
You can actually see and feel it. You don't need a dashboard to tell
Yeah.
you. People just are mentioning it. So you've mentioned HB.162. You mentioned legislature. You mentioned policy. That's a whole nother beast.
Yes,
right?
it is.
That's a whole nother learning curve.
Uh-huh.
How's that gone? And you mentioned like there's a private part of it that kind of matches. Is that safe to assume?
Yeah, we are calling it about. So it's gone well. The legislature, like you said, it's a different animal than these private organizations, private companies that can kind of pivot on a dime. We're dealing with like a slow-moving machine up there, as you're very well aware. But it's been really great. It's taken some getting used to. I think introducing the tampon tax 4 years ago was a good first step. And it's funny. It had been talked about before in the legislature. And if you go back and listen to the committee meetings, in these meetings, that bill went to a committee of all men. And they never used the word like period or menstruation when they were talking about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think to go from those years, it never got out of committee. Or for 4 years, it didn't get out of committee until we kind of reintroduced it with this big tax reform. So the interesting thing is to see the progression from, man, that was not that long ago. That was like literally 6 years ago where our legislators wouldn't say the words period or menstruation. And now we have passed unanimously, this bill, HB.162, has passed unanimously through our House committee, the House floor, the Senate committee, and it will go to the Senate floor this week. And the support, it is so neat when you can kind of tap into an issue that is so prevalent and that can be understood with the right messaging, right? This is not an alternative message. This is just something that half of our population experiences, and we should be involved with this. I think when you're able to do that, it's been really neat because it's not the women. In every committee hearing, we've had every single female legislator speak to it, but also I think every man has spoken to it, every male legislator. It's something that touches every life, right? If you don't have a daughter or a wife or a sister, you have a mother. Everybody's got a mother. And so this is something that everyone's connected to in some way. So that's been really neat. One of the key things that Kristin mentioned was that partnership, having these private donors, the Andrus Family Foundation, Kristin's Family Foundation, and the Larry H. and Gail Miller Family Foundations. It was so fascinating, just from a perspective of having been in this legislative game for a little minute here, seeing when their willingness, as soon as this issue is like, Kristin already knew about the issue, and as soon as they could see like the vision on the schools, it was without hesitation. I mean, that's what's so cool about these public-private partnerships. They pivot on a dime. I mean, Kristin, we start chatting about it, and it's like, we're in. They can see the need. They can see how this is legacy work that, Kristin and Jeremy Andrus, they're going to die one day. Gail Miller's going to die one day. But they're going to leave this like legacy behind for these girls that they're going to be able to access period products in their schools. That's bigger than them. It goes on beyond that. And so it was really neat to see them jump on board so quickly and get involved. And then to be able to go to the legislature and say, listen, we have these private donors who see this. It's such an obvious need. It's so clear that this needs to happen. And I think the legislature would have probably done this anyway, but it would not have gone like it's gone with their involvement, where it's all hands on deck. Everybody's supporting. I mean, we're really actually hoping to pass completely unanimously through the Senate as well, where this would be a 100% supported bill, which is really neat in these divisive times to have something that's so well supported.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And didn't think of like the legacy part of it.
Yeah.
Where we all benefit from good legacies, whether it's national parks or
totally
freeways, like people were thinking ahead of several decades ahead of where they were in their
Yeah.
current, jobs. But so if this all goes according to plan, what are going to be some like key parts of the bill that will be applicable soon? What are kind of medium and what are some long-term applications?
Yeah, sure. So the neat thing is this bill, if it goes all the way through and we get our appropriation, which we'll know, by the end of the session, which is the first week in March, we will have period products in schools before the beginning of next school year. And so that means that every single girl and all gender bathroom as well as faculty bathrooms will have dispensers in them with period products, both tampons and pads. For these girls. So they'll have immediate access when they go to the bathroom. They'll be free. We've also done, this was something the donors, and maybe you want to talk about this, Kristin, the focus on quality of product.
Yeah. Okay. And I also want to go back to like networking and what we did that like really, really helped with the legislature.
Yes.
But yes, so we, and actually Representative Lisenby, who is sponsoring our bill, was really helpful in like dignity with product. And so we could come back to that slot machine where you have to put in your quarter and bring out the old stuff that we've had that just doesn't really make girls feel good. And our point was, if we're going to do this and we're going to go big and we're going to go all in for our girls in schools, we want to make sure that we have really good, high quality product. And so our dispensers look different. They're not that typical machine, which you probably haven't seen a lot because I realize those are only in girls' bathrooms. They look, forward thinking. They look progressive. And it doesn't have bleach, doesn't have all the terrible things for you. And the pads have wings and they're, good tampons. And that actually matters. Like when girls come in and they're like, oh, this isn't what I see at every other place. Like these schools actually care about me. My government cares about me. It really, really makes such a difference. So we're so grateful to be able to do that, and so grateful to be able to do it for our teachers. Because as we were going around to all of these schools, we realized there were like 2 or 3 teachers in every single school that these girls go to. And they're the ones that are dishing out. We had someone come and testify in front of the House, and she's a teacher, her husband's a teacher, and she said, we spend too much of our joint income on period products for our students. Those are 2 teachers. Yeah. And that is it cannot rely on them. And we can't rely on, even the pantries that we're trying to fill for weekends, that the girls have to go into the pantry and get it. We want them to be in the bathroom, high quality product. That was really, really important to us. And what I've loved is that the legislatures actually totally stepped up, respected that. And I really think that makes such a difference. But in terms of legislation, I think there's a lot of things that, it's always hard and you're always pushing against this. But because we had the public talking about this, it made such a difference up on the Hill. And so we had student ambassador events where we went and we taught our girls how to become, activists and how to, take ownership in their schools for this. We had the whole community talking about it. And when you create such momentum and excitement around certain things, I think it's really hard actually for people to be against it. And so not only do we have the private partnership, but we have, a lot of companies and a lot of high net worth individuals that have donated to it, people that are talking about it at their dinner tables, at church, at the gym. It's just become something that's really exciting. And to me, that has created such a buzz. We've had legislators come to us and say, oh, people are coming and wanting to write reports in their high school about this. Sid Dixon has been really, really such a fan of this because she has seen all of these girls and students come together and take ownership over this. And to me, all of those pieces have helped with this legislation. Like, yes, it's good legislation. Yes, it should happen. But when you have so much public support, that has been really what has set us apart. We've gotten more, conversations going in the community than I think any other right now in a positive light, which has helped us. And networking, like you talked about in business. And I know with Jeremy and myself, like networking and your circle and what who you're talking to and who you have relationships is everything. And I have found that completely here, especially when we go to Logan and we go down to St. George and Cedar City, including the whole state on this, where they're like, yes, we are lifting every girl, whether you care about women in tech, whether you care about, refugees or single moms. They all know that we are lifting every single one of those girls. And that has just been huge, even up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I say one thing about that? I was just thinking about Kristin's message there. I think that is one of the things, like the groundswell is insane. You know, Kristin, I think when we came together, it was like Kristin has this ability to create an incredible groundswell, and it worked so beautifully. But I think that what's catching on too is, yes, right now we're working on this legislative piece. We'll transition into a business, like asking businesses to lift where they lead. But one thing, like she said, we were at a woman, the woman, Mackenzie Bauer, who owns Thread Wallets, right? She hosted an event for us, just a yoga night, and it was so cool to see her stand up as this, like, business owner and say the reason that she was invested in this idea and this cause was because only 2% of capital went to women. And she was able to tie back and say, but that starts way before you're 32 and applying for capital. That starts when you're 8 or 9 and your period starts. And if you don't have access, you're already like missing school those days, as you said. And then, it creates all of these barriers for girls. And so looking back at like the root causes, in Utah, we keep getting this, we talk about this a lot. We keep getting this ranking that we're 50 out of 50 for women's equality. And we wonder why. But the reality is, like, we need to look at some of these very basics. And if we can fix these, it fixes other things. Like Mackenzie Bauer said, 2%, that number will grow if we can get those girls to stay in school. Maybe 4% of capital will start going to women. Things change because we are dealing with like a root problem here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you guys have accomplished something in a short amount of time, like a big project. I'm always like, when are we going to finally get in a headlock and they tap out, right?
Yep.
In this instance, like money or support or help, right? But it also serves as kind of a case study of how to do it, right? Bottom up, top down, meet in the middle.
Totally.
Involve big communities, small communities. Did you guys have like a strategic path as you were looking through all of this, or did it kind of just happen?
We developed one.
It definitely came. We pivoted. Some things worked well, some things didn't. We literally came together. She's like, I'm meeting, Speaker Wilson up on Capitol Hill. Come with me. And it just kept getting better and better and better and better. And so honestly, I don't think we ever dreamed that it would go unanimously. I think we knew it was needed. It was going to happen. And it was going to happen. And we've created strategy along the way. But then we've had to come up with, for instance, the student ambassador program was brought up by the speaker. And he said, let's get girls involved. Yeah. And so we did. That has just taken off. And so I think we've been really nimble, and then we did something for Christmas. I was like, oh, that didn't work quite as well. That's okay. What's next? And then now we're going to, work with other states and try to teach other states how to do this. We didn't plan on that because we didn't know how well this would go and how many people would be watching us as a case study for other states and how to do it. So I think we've been pivoting as we've needed to and working on our strengths for sure.
And I think some of our strengths are we were able to like identify our audiences because we have a very broad audience, right? We've got like business owners, we have the legislature, we have students like 12 to 18, we have women in other states we want to engage. So we kind of bucketed out our audiences, and we've tried to have like, symposium because there's a lot of thought leadership in this, for professors. We had a couple university, a lot of university admin and people involved there. So we tried to create buckets and then be nimble. Yeah. I mean, we have now developed a strategy.
Yeah, now we do.
but yeah, absolutely. It was something that like it started unraveling so quickly, like from September through December, that we were just like running ragged. And now we're, trying to be really thoughtful about how we approach it.
Especially as we head into businesses.
Yeah, businesses, we know we can't mess around.
Yeah, it's a different ball game. And so I guess the nice silver lining is you guys are here on the podcast, but there's a lot of people that have been a part of it and helping, right? They've also learned how to do this, whether they're talking about period project or whatever the next challenge is in their life. They've kind of seen like, here is the way you do it, and it's not a straight line, usually, right? You get told no, you go find somebody that will say yes. And
sure. I love that. And like you said, I mean, and Kristin mentioned this too, I love that thought so much. we haven't not failed. We have absolutely had several fails along the way, just in the things we've done and tried this and it doesn't work. And so we pivot and do this. And I think that that's something that should always be pointed out, whether it's in business or in as, cultural movement like this, that you're going to have fails. I've sat in advocacy meetings with 3 people when we thought 300 were going to come. You know what I mean? It's just you've got those moments and then you've got great moments. And so, like you said, pivot to your strengths, focus on the strengths, pivot to those, and then hopefully get it done that way.
Yeah. So we've mentioned kind of the next foray into business. What does that entail?
Yeah, we're super excited. So we knew that our goal, we did have strategy. I just, and Emily definitely did as we kind of looked at this, especially because we also have to remember that Emily's been working on this for 4 years, which she had successes and failures along the way, which really paved the way for this to be able to work. But for businesses, we're really excited because we do have a 10-year strategy of eradicating period poverty in Utah. And so along those lines are the schools, and we feel like we're going to get a good check mark next to that, make sure that our girls are taken care of there. We're hoping, with the food bank, we can take care of those extra needs. And so the next really big movement that we're hoping you guys will help us with, and you are, is with businesses. And so our goal is to have businesses pledge to become period project approved. And that means that you supply pads or tampons, period products for your employees as well as your clientele or whoever's coming to your business. It's really important that we have our businesses lift where they lead. We can't say we're taking care of our girls in school and then at 18, we don't have to worry about this anymore. We absolutely have to worry about this. As I go to businesses and I've met with people, the women at every single table tell me the stories, right? At every table that we're at, we hear the stories. And so to have that dignity piece and that we respect you, we want you here at work. We want to make sure that you have what you need, just like you have toilet paper and just like you have hand soap, you have these period products here. You don't have to run to your car. You don't have to run home. We know that our kids are calling at school asking because they don't have it. We don't want our women at work to have to be going through that. And so I think it just makes such a statement as a business leader. I actually went into Traeger as we were talking about this, and I started looking through the bathrooms and I was like, they have period products. This is so awesome. This was before we were doing anything. Yeah. And I thought, what does that say to their female employees? We see you, we hear you, we want you here, and we don't want you leaving. We're making sure that we provide you lunch and a fun atmosphere and an amazing culture. And that's what we're all trying to do as business leaders, right? Yeah. We are trying to recruit, we're trying to retain our employees. And so the most basic fundamental thing for women, which I think all businesses are trying to attract right now and keep happy and do everything we can, is we are period project approved. And whether that's we have dispensers at the gala. We're really excited to be talking about this and showing you guys what we have. It's a very streamlined, easy way to do it, making sure that you are covered in all ways. And that when women go to work, they know we're period project approved. That means we are taking care of all of your needs in the bathroom. And that's what a 21st century bathroom looks like. You guys, we're progressive here in Utah. We're doing incredible, amazing things. And if we do not have these basic needs met for our women, we are not leading out. We're leading out, the policy project is, and the period project in the state of Utah. We need our businesses leading out on this. If we do not walk into every bathroom in Utah County, Salt Lake County, and all across the state and see period products and being period project approved, I think I just think it's really, really important for us to pave the way and for businesses especially to show we are all in, we care, we support this, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that our women are respected and feel dignity when they're at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been an interesting, it's such an interesting thing because it's something that maybe male leadership, because, women don't always talk openly about their periods at work. And it's something that might be an oversight that legitimately the number of women that have probably left the office or left their place of work, wherever they're working, to take care of that need, and how that increases productivity and all of these things for your company. I think they'll be so happily surprised at what a low cost this is for such a big return. Not only in the physical, being able to stay where you are, if I'm going into a presentation and I start my period, I gotta run. It doesn't matter, So it's not only that physical thing, but like Kristin mentioned, it's really it shows that you value this. And I know it's a cool moment in time because, and I would say Silicon Slopes is really leading out on this with like being very forward thinking about women, like what makes a workplace friendly for, either a woman who has a child or a man who has a child. We're really trying to be thoughtful about these like extras and extra programs and stuff. And I think this is the perfect thing to do. It's just a little thing that will make a massive difference. And, when somebody's coming to interview and they walk into the bathroom, their period products, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they've got me. Like they see me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And not to oversimplify because a lot of work and thoughts got into it, but it is, you've mentioned both simple and basic, right?
Oh, yeah. It's so simple and basic.
It's not overly costly.
No.
It kind of is a dispenser with nice products, strategically located in the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have your employees not have a fire system, and you wouldn't have like moldy bread for the treats, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's just one more thing, and it's not like rocket science, right?
Yeah, pretty basic.
Block and tackle.
Uh-huh.
Very
Get
cool.
it done.
All right, so we mentioned a little bit about Silicon Slopes involvement, why y'all are on the podcast. We have the Silicon Slopes Hall of Fame and Awards coming up, and you guys are a key partner there. So what's the ultimate tie-in? Why are we on this podcast? Why are we talking about the Hall of Fame and events? I think we've laid the foundation. So now with the pledge, what's the next step?
Well, I think I'm sure Kristin will want to add to this for sure. But I think, as we looked at, we knew before, we've known for a while that we needed to get businesses to lift where they lead because we're not going to try to implement governmental policy on businesses. That's not like our style. That's not how we want to do things. We want businesses to do it themselves. And so actually for us, as we were looking at good partners, it was like Silicon Slopes is already thinking about this kind of stuff. You guys are, have kind of set a tone about being forward thinking on these things. And it was like a natural place to do it. So do you want to talk about Hall of Fame?
Yeah. So John actually reached out to me. Actually, we were just chatting one day. I said, by the way, I'm going to be hitting you up for, what we're doing with periods. He's like, John Bowers is the best because he has 8 sisters.
Lots of girls.
He can say period without blushing. He's just like the best guy to be on your team. So it was right before I remember your guys' big event. And I said, I know you have a lot going on, but I'm going to be reaching out to you. So then a couple months ago, he reached out and said, we're in. What do we need to do? We want you at the gala. We want you our nonprofit partner. And so he was all in and he loved us coming in and helping businesses because that's, I think, part of it is like mentioning it and then letting them run with it, but also saying, hey, this is a big deal. And look what we've done for our students in schools. I think businesses care a lot about girls in school and what they're doing. And we see that, right, every day in what they're doing and how they're helping in their communities. And they care so much about their communities. You look at all of the good work that our companies here in Utah especially are doing. And that's what we do. We take care of each other. We're a village here. We're a team. We support each other. And so when he saw that, yes, this can absolutely be a huge, huge drive with Silicon Slopes companies, and they will be all in and they're going to want a piece of this. And we were excited because we thought as we're, end of February, we're going to be pretty far with this bill and we'll have a really great, way to celebrate and say, but we're not done. We've come to you guys and we are asking you, and you guys have done this in the past. Silicon Slopes has said, please pledge to hire more women. Please pledge to do, whatever, all of these different things. And so we feel like this is an absolutely easy ask for these companies that may be doing it. And then also providing them a way to get it done in a very, very easy process, which we're excited to announce and showcase. And we'll have lots of pink and we'll take over for a couple minutes. We've had students involved for students to be able to come on video and to share their experiences. We definitely want to break their hearts a little bit because as much as it's pink and fun and parties, it's also about the one.
Yeah.
Like that's what we always come back to is like, we sit on this podcast for one girl that today is sitting in class and bleeds on her seat. We show up to these parties and these ambassador retreats and everything we're doing for one girl that today and tomorrow and next week come to school and they don't have what they need or they're not at school. Or the woman at work that doesn't show up at 7-Eleven where she's working because she does not have what she needs and then she misses her, she loses her job. Like there's so many layers for our women and girls and we know that. But this is one that we can so easily help with. And so I think why we're here is for the one girl. Like always, it's for the one girl, and helping one girl helps every girl.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Yeah, so that'll be fun. It'll be great to have you guys involved. And The nice thing is there's going to be a lot of businesses there that can take the pledge, right?
Yes.
They'll be shooting fish in the barrel for a couple hours at least. And you got the stage, they're going to listen. So, all right. So as we wrap up this podcast, what are some of the next steps that folks can get involved with you guys and your organization, and what are you most excited about over the next year?
Yeah, I would say, we are really excited about this Period Project Approved. That'll be a big focus for us this year, is looking at how do we get businesses to do this? Because I think if we have schools, we're really trying to take a look at all the big systems in the state of Utah. We've got, schools, which we'll take a chunk out of. We've got universities that we're working on as well. We've got a program to get universities involved, and we've already met with, I think 5 of the 8 universities.
They're all in.
To get them, they're in a competition to see who can do it first. We want that to happen in the business community. Right. We also have, a few other programs that we're looking at, like making sure that women in prisons have access and homeless shelters have access. So there are a few things, and like Kristin said, the big goal here is to get rid of period poverty in the next decade, which randomly we can actually do. So we feel like that's, because we can see it, that's our generation's duty. And so we're excited about that. As far as becoming involved, for people who want to be involved, I think the biggest thing is, when you're a nonprofit, is just donating to the cause. We've got incredible minds working on this. It's actually insane. The team we've built out is
so good.
It's actually insane. Yeah. It's an amazing group. So I think, donating, we are so, motivated and feeling excited about this, and then lifting where you lead.
Yeah. Talking about it. I always say, talking about it in your gym and your dinner table and wherever you are. Do you know about this bill? Do you know what they're doing? Have you heard about, what we're doing for girls in schools? Just talking about it and being a megaphone in your circle of influence is such a big deal. And normalizing this, right? Our big thing, half the reason we're doing what we're doing is we just want to be able to talk about periods like you are, so openly and easily without a red face and shame and this is so awkward. And we're seeing that in Capitol Hill. We're seeing that at our dinner tables. It's really neat to see that the more we talk about this, the more normalized it is, and that our daughters will not have to have these same conversations. For decades, thousands of years, it has been pushed and shoved aside and not talked about, and it's a quiet, silent need. No longer. It was a silent need for the food bank. It was a silent need for every single one of us until the last couple of years. And that is absolutely why we are here, is taking the shame away. We are openly talking about this, and will forever be. We have changed the way that we look at periods, especially in Utah. And we really think that we'll lead out with all the other states as well.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's a little litmus test for the Silk and Slopes podcast on excitement, and you guys are clearly excited.
Always.
Which is critical, right?
Yeah.
If you're not excited about it, it's not going to probably work.
Mm-hmm.
If the leadership is just like, oh, okay, probably not going to work. But this is clearly working, and it looks like it's going to achieve a full victory.
Yeah.
But a lot of hard work's gone into it. So we appreciate you guys being a part of the podcast, the Hall of Fame and awards, and congrats on your success. And we'll be here to support in any way we can.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
A lot.
Thank you.